All right, hello friends. We're back with your favorite podcast show of the week. It's episode number 561 of Location Weekly, and we are recording on March the 22nd. Brianna, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. A little tired. I just got back from Palm Springs like 2 a.m. this morning, so other than that, I'm good. So it was nice weather. It's a good trip. Saw our
Very,
good friend Scott McNulty, so that was good.
yes, yes. I'm glad you guys got to hang out together. Yeah, I mean, not much is new over here. Just been following the baseball, deals, which have been very interesting so far. Freddie Freeman is no longer a Brave. A couple of other moving parts there too. So it should be an interesting season.
Yeah,
But the weather is warming up here a little bit at a time, so getting excited for the spring.
yeah. Same here. It's starting to creep up a little bit. We're now moving into that transition where it's like a lot of rain, right? Because it's warm. It's not snow. It's just like all rain now. So it's just gonna wash. It's gonna be a mess for a little while, I think, up here in Toronto, in terms of just dirty and wet and anyways. But
Well, good thing you escaped for a few days,
yeah,
anyways.
it'll be fine. All right, we have a good show as per usual. Four stories that we want to walk you through, and I'll let Aubriana start us off.
All right. Well, higher gas prices have been tough, I think, for everybody who drives, but it's been especially tough for the gig workers. So, gig economy. DoorDash is launching a gas rewards program for their drivers that's going to help them maintain their income level. So what they're doing is allowing qualifying drivers to get rewards from $1.65 to $2 per gallon. And they can also get 10% cash back when they use the company's debit card. It's called Dasher Direct. And they can use that perk whether they are on the clock or not. So that's kind of nice, wherever you're driving, getting that 10% cash back. So they're also adding a weekly bonus in for drivers who are driving the most miles. And we're seeing some other companies try and combat this. So we've got Uber, they're passing on fuel fees, that they're charging the riders to the drivers. And most are committed to doing this. They just started, in the past week, and most are committed to doing this at least through April, kind of just trying to figure out what's next and engaging that. But it's nice to hear that the gig economy organizations are actually thinking about their fleet workers for once. I think we hear a lot of negativity about how maybe they don't always take care of the people, the feet on the ground that are making things happen. So, I think this is necessary. Obviously, the things that are changing, gas prices just as one is just one impact that's happening, but there's a lot of things that are changing in the economy and, just making sure that you're taking care of the people that actually feed the organization is super important. So I like how they're going about this. Obviously, there's still a need to have, Door Dashers, to have, Uber Eats. People are still using that. That hasn't changed, but, there are other aspects that are changing. So it's nice to see these responses happening. So, I think the tough part though is that likely those people who are paying for those services and getting kind of past those fees, we're not necessarily seeing an increase in and anything that we're getting, and we're still having to pay for our gas as well. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's good that they're trying to account for the change in gas prices that we're all dealing with. Here in Canada as well, we're seeing Uber's added that surcharge, for rides, and I think they've set up here it's to the end of May for now, and then it'll get reevaluated, same as you just described. So, I think it's one of those things where we all have to kind of just deal with this, and it's not just the impact on consumer delivery and rides and things like that. Obviously, it has supply chain impact on products that we're buying in grocery stores and everything else, and getting the stuff there costs more as well, right? So I think we're seeing these companies start to adjust and try to find ways to sort of share that cost, right? Like obviously it costs more than whatever it is, 45 cents per mile to to account for that, for what these drivers have to pay. And so they're not passing that full bill on, but they are saying, hey, look, like we do have to do something here, and everybody needs to participate in it. So I don't think that's a bad thing, and I think the loyalty piece of what or the rewards piece of what they're trying to do, I it's interesting. It's not like super innovative or anything that I think is earth shattering. What I think is more interesting, I read another story while we're on the topic of DoorDash, is they've launched a accelerator program as well last week, and it's targeted at sort of marginalized communities, and so it's I'm just going to pull it up here. So they launched this on March 14th, and it's an accelerator targeting supporting small business is in the CPG community. So like if you're like a small business that's got some sort of consumer good that you're trying to get to market, they've launched this accelerator called Local Goods, and it's financial support and educational initiatives for 50 entrepreneurs who are women, transgender, immigrants, or people of color. It includes a 6-week curriculum created in partnership with a small business advisory company called Next Street. And so they offer you, sort of financial management classes and vendor relations and supply chain courses and all this kind of stuff, and a $5,000 grant and a guarantee that they'll sell your products on the Dash Mart. So I think that's kind of interesting. Just as a sidebar story, that they're trying. I think they are overall as a company. I think DoorDash is trying to say, hey, look, we realize that we're not just a delivery company. We're dealing with people and businesses and humans, and there are a lot of needs and a lot of challenges right now, whether that's high fuel costs or people just trying to get their goods to market and survive or get their small business off the ground. So I like overall kind of the vibe that I'm getting from DoorDash, I guess is what I'm saying. Any final thoughts from you?
No, I like that. That's I'm glad you shared that piece too. It's great.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go on to our second story then. So this is a company we've talked about before, actually fairly recently. They're called SCS Imagotag, and they're a company that is in this space of shelf labels, so electronic ink shelf labels in stores. And without going into too much detail around that, they are obviously, like we all are, concerned about what's going on in the Ukraine right now, and have teamed up with UNICEF and the Red Cross, and they're working across 30,000 stores that are using their shelf label technology right now, and turning the electronic labels into call to actions to support donations to UNICEF and the Red Cross, specifically for their relief efforts in the Ukraine right now. So I think that's interesting because it's one thing to deploy this technology into a store and just kind of have it sitting there, but to be able to kind of say, hey, look, it's really like a digital signage network, on a small scale, in 30,000 stores. And if we can use that to create a call to action, to create, sort of highlight, the need and the challenge and the devastation that's going on, in that part of the world right now, why not, right? So I think, I love the fact that they're able to kind of just pivot, on the fly in that sense, and just enable their network of shelf labels to do more than just here's the price and information about the product on that shelf, right? And give people an opportunity to actually act and do something. So I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, something that we've seen over the past few years is where we've seen technology actually connect with people and solve problems and, help. And this is a huge problem right now that's happening. And I think, being able to bring attention to it, like you mentioned, they have that outlet, they have that extension. And so being able to easily empower that connection between, a cause and putting that in front of people that could potentially help, I think is amazing. And probably at little to no cost to them. So I think that this is great. I'd like to see more of this. I'd like to see more, more of these signage companies, whether that's like the ones that are inside of the Ubers and Lyfts, or whether that's, just on the bus stops and things of the future where we can kind of, fuel this more and just help, alleviate those needs and challenges that so many, in Ukraine and coming out of Ukraine are facing right now. So I think this is great. I want to hear more stories like this in the coming weeks for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you raise about, like, the Ubers and the taxis, and those types of screen networks that are sitting there as well, or even I'm thinking, elevator news networks, gas station TV, like all these types of sort of small screen networks with many people, many eyeballs, and high touch points. I think could be enabled in this way. So I like that these guys are taking a lead in that way. So yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's move over to a partnership. This is between Ground Truth, someone we've known about for a long time, and a company that I recently learned about a couple of months ago called Flowcode, who is really focused on QR codes and an experience on CTV, well, TV, CTV and beyond, I should say. So this new partnership really is allowing marketers to go beyond this impression or brand awareness play that we typically see on television. And they're able to create this digital and offline engagement opportunity with consumers through the QR code, right? So they have this full closed loop attribution or measurement capabilities. And, Flowcode is the QR provider for TV networks, platforms, programming. They say they reach nearly 100% of US households, and they work with about 60% of the Fortune 500 companies. I think what's interesting is that right now, TV, specifically CTV, and the way that we measure it it's in a very interesting transition and place, because the way that linear television has been addressed and measured, over the years with providers like a Nielsen, for example, is very different than perhaps the capabilities or the way that CTV can be measured. And, the methodologies are being questioned, as they should be, right, as we progress and we learn more. So I think that what's really interesting here is that this allows that kind of one-to-one connection whenever you scan a QR code and then you take action on your phone or on a device. And then I think the Ground Truth measurement capabilities, such as their visitation data, make this a pretty solid partnership. So taking that a step further, where you can have more attribution, including the footfall attribution, but also just, hey, I took an action on another device through scanning on my television. And, when you think about consumer behavior and a user experience, typically we don't want to engage on our television and click on an ad and engage there and go to the website and all of that. Even with a smart television, it's just not super intuitive and it's not enjoyable. You would rather continue watching the content while you look on your second screen, to kind of make that connection and be able to see like what it is, or is there an offer or something like that. So, I think that although this is not necessarily groundbreaking, at Samsung, we've been doing QR codes within our advertising, maybe a little bit of a different experience than what Flowcode is providing, but there's opportunities to connect that end to end. So from exposure to actually taking an action, I think that is really what we're trying to do here, is connect those dots and show brands the efficacy of their ad spend across the various channels, whether that's linear or CTV or just digital display in general. So I think it's a strong partnership. Do I think that it's like, wow, and something super new or creative? Probably not, but it may just open up the doors for brands to think about connecting with their consumers in a new way.
Yeah, I agree with, I think, all that you said there. A few thoughts from my side. I think that number one, sort of TV isn't going away. We're all sitting in front of, those screens at home, whether it's, normal traditional broadcast television for some people still, or it's, over the top, we're watching, right? So, and we're consuming a lot of, a lot of hours, in that medium. So I think if there's a way to link that and attribute ads that are running there to actual footfall and traffic to those stores, to those brands, I think that makes sense, right? I mean, as you said, this isn't a new thing. It's sort of a powerful mechanism to do that. With using the QR codes, which we're all familiar with now, and it's an easy action for people to take. I think. As you were talking, I was remembering, from years past, all the stories that we had covered, around things like Shazam technology and stuff like that. I mean, Shazam was, embedded in TV commercials. I remember Coca-Cola using it extensively around the London Olympics some years ago. And, and they had, in that case, it was more of a passive, sort of engagement, because if you had Shazam on your phone, which, at that time, 300 million people had already had that on their phone, it was set up to run in the background to recognize, certain Shazam, audio signals, right? So if that signal came up in the TV commercial, it would kind of trigger the Shazam app, to kind of launch and recognize that, that was an ad for, the Gap or Old Navy or whatever. And then they could attribute it to, again, seeing from a footfall perspective that you were near an Old Navy store, and even pop up a recommendation in the app. Hey, remember that commercial you saw? Here's the offer. Why don't you go into the store? So I think that in that sense, sort of that connectivity, that attribution, that sort of ability to sort of tie, what's going on in television to your physical, location and where you are, has been around for a while. I think what I like about this is that we're talking about QR codes. It's very ubiquitous now. It's obviously, we've all been using them during COVID. So I think the timing and kind of scenario that they've kind of positioned here is interesting and good. So yeah. All right, final story. We're talking about Google now. Google has created a new ad format that they call vehicle ads. And so basically it shows search users nearby cars that are for sale. So it's location based and kind of displaying, cars that are, currently available for sale. They announced this at the National Automobile Dealers Association just a week ago. And they've commissioned some research from Kantar with GearShift, and said that 16% of new car buyers bought their car online, which is up 1% from 3 years ago. To me, that's a big number. 16% of people are buying cars online, without going anywhere or going to a dealership or anything like that. So that basically the way it works is they say car buyers, for example, who are looking for, a 2019 SUV from within search, if they type that into search, they'll get a picture, they'll get a location, the make, the price, the mileage of all vehicles that match that criteria that are nearby and can be delivered. And then the sellers of those vehicles get details of the potential leads that are coming in from the search piece here. So it's kind of like, the old sort of Google, click to call type of ads, but delivered with geolocation and search results, and, much more details around, sort of the particulars of the vehicle itself. Once a buyer selects a car, the ad directs them to the vehicle's description page on the dealer's website, and then they can fill out their contact information and sort of go from there. There are restrictions on this, though. I should point out that it's not permitted for promoting vehicle ads that are recreational vehicles or commercial vehicles or farm vehicles or anything like that. This is straight up, sort of, traditional consumer, cars. And yeah, so that's kind of interesting. And it's both new and used inventory as well. So kind of cool. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is something that's probably not groundbreaking. The capabilities have been there to do this forever, but I like that Google is taking a more verticalized approach, and they're addressing the auto industry specifically to say, like, here's an ad, format or experience or product that actually works for you, and directly, I would say, capturing leads, right? Solid leads for these dealers. Where I would like to see this go and expand is, I think there's an opportunity for like sellers, whether it's peer-to-peer, kind of what you see on Craigslist with the car industry, for this to be enabled too. So if they could take it a step further, I think that opens up opportunities for both dealers and, you know, individual sellers where you're saying, hey, like I've got a car for sale. Maybe the dealership wants to get you in. So they say, hey, like I would pay X amount for that car, come in, you know, or maybe there's an opportunity just to connect you with someone who's looking. I think that traditionally searching for anything, you know, on Craigslist has not really been the best user experience. So in that search and discovery, being able to match maybe in more of a peer-to-peer way versus just a peer-to-business way could be really interesting to expand upon this. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a solid offering, and I'm sure the dealers are excited about this as well.
Yeah, and just one little stat to throw in there. So they ran a beta of this with a bunch of dealers, and they said that those who used the vehicle ads with existing search campaigns saw a 25% increase in conversion. You know, on moving their vehicles. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, I believe it. I think it'll give the, you know, the cars.com and those a little bit of a run for their money, because that's how they're monetizing all their placements. So now you've got the biggest search engine coming after you.
There you go. Alrighty, well, that's our show for this week, everybody. You've been listening and watching episode number 561 of Location Weekly. We thank you, as always, for your time. Please reach out if you have story ideas or feedback for us, or just give us some likes and some love on whatever platform you're consuming this. And we'll see you next week with another show. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.
Bye.